Folks, I do not know what's come over me, and I've never said this before out loud, but I agree with Tony Blair. He has been excoriating in his criticism of America's decision to hastily withdraw troops from Afghanistan after 2 decades of money spent, lives lost, and a delicate peace broadly achieved. Given their politics, you'd expect Biden and Blair to be bosom buddies, but Tony Blair has described the US Commander-in-Chief as an imbecile for doing this, and how right he is. The decision to enter Afghanistan with the Americans in 2001 was the right thing to do, and a rare foreign policy triumph for Blair. Within months, the terror threat from al-Qaeda, responsible, of course, for the horrific Twin Towers attack, was all but neutralised. And over 2 decades, Afghanistan, though not exactly the land of milk and honey, became a far less dysfunctional society than it was 2 decades ago. The economy grew threefold, women dressed as they wished, and pursued education and careers. And a message was sent to the world that the US and its allies will simply not tolerate terrorism. Well, since then, Joe Biden has waved the white flag and propelled that country and the world back to square one. Given his age, perhaps he likes the idea of rolling back the years. But as the haunting images of 9/11 play out on its soon-to-be 20-year anniversary, it's clear to all and sundry that we do not want to go back to 2001. But that's exactly what's happened. I can't decide whether Joe Biden is in mental decline or just guilty of profound misjudgment. Could be both. Either way, it's patently clear that this man couldn't lead a conga line, let alone the free world. The supposedly new-look, touchy-feely Taliban 2.0, who care about women's rights and the safe departure of Western nationals, is about as convincing as Elton John's hairpiece. It was a lie when Joe Biden said that people had safe passage to Kabul airport, when the opposite was true. People have been impeded, shot at, and tragically, many have been crushed in the stampede at the airport itself. Plus, advertising billboards featuring women in Western dress are already being painted over, and the Taliban are now reportedly making armed house-to-house visits. Be clear, they're not bringing around a cup of sugar or delivering the post. Now, Donald Trump is no angel, and he's the one that signed that inadequate deal with the Taliban at the end of his presidency. But you do have to wonder, don't you, whether if he was in post, this might have been better executed. I'm no cheerleader for the orange one, but surely it couldn't have been as bad as this. And that's what Americans will be thinking when they cast their votes in the midterm elections and ultimately in 2024. We've gifted the Taliban with more than just territory. The Taliban have seized abandoned US weapons worth billions, reportedly including, wait for it, 600,000 assault rifles, 2,000 armoured vehicles, and 40 aircraft, including Black Hawks. Here they are, posing with a few of their ill-gotten gains. Look at that rather fancy Ford 4x4. Look at those weapons, Kalashnikovs, rifles, you name it. Very, very troubling stuff. This new regime, populated by gangsters and thugs, will be able to fund and put into action their hateful ideology, fueled by what some speculate is £1 trillion worth of precious minerals beneath Afghani soil. So they've got the country, they've got the weapons, and they've got the money. And the new-look, ultra-woke Taliban 2.0 are not going to be using these resources to build universities, hospitals, water parks, libraries and garden centres. Quite the opposite. They will seek to spread their miserable ideology across Afghanistan and beyond. And jihadis across the Middle East will be inspired by a clear message from the West, which is that we do negotiate with terrorists and that we do surrender. The scale of what we've done is incalculable. We will be processing this mistake for not just years, but decades to come. And let me give you just a tiny example of what has been sacrificed this week. Take a look at these following tweets. Now, this is a lady that has written in March 2002, after the fall of the Taliban, thousands of Afghan girls were invited to go to the nearest public school to participate in a placement test because the Taliban had burned all female students' records to erase their existence. So first time round, the Taliban burned all of the student records, all the homework and coursework from these young girls. Nearly 20 years later, this lady writes, As the founder of the only all-girls boarding school in Afghanistan, I'm burning my students' records not to erase them, but to protect them and their families. And this is where we're at. Young women who will now likely face reprisals for having studied in the last few years. And finally, take a look at this video from 2019 of young women on their way to university, dressed as they wish, pursuing a better life for themselves and their families, and actually singing with joy at what life has in store for them. Take a look at this video. Wonderful young women. Well, all of that has been sacrificed. Good has surrendered to evil, and history will never forgive us.